from Monterey on California's beautiful Central Coast, this is the Ringside Boxing Show. I'm Dennis Taylor welcoming you to join me and my expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and John J. Raspanti today and every week for the hottest, sweatiest show on the West Coast. And now, from Studio 1A, it's the Ringside Boxing Show.
Welcome to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor, and we got a bunch of great stuff straight ahead for you. Our featured guest today is Showtime Shawn Porter, the former IBF welterweight champion of the world, who fights Danny Garcia on September 8th. And a lot of people are looking forward to seeing that collision, and some people are thinking it's got fight of the year potential. John Raspanti and I talked to Shawn on Friday, and he gave us some very candid and honest comments, and an interview that takes about 35 minutes. It's really interesting, so that's coming up in just a little bit. Yesterday, I went over to the training headquarters of one of the best young fighters in the world, Ruben Villa IV, who's 12-0. He's going to be taking another step up in competition this coming Friday in Corona. Ruben and his trainer Max Garcia did a short interview with us just before his final sparring session of his training camp against his stablemate Joel Diaz Jr., and Joel's going to be our guest next week, by the way. Paul McLaughlin, our British correspondent, is also coming up in a few minutes with another report from the UK boxing scene, where Carl Frampton and Tyson Fury were winners on Saturday. And we'll start, as we do every week, with a look at our current events with our expert analyst. Travis Hartman is a professional boxer, trainer, and promoter from Osborne, Missouri. He's now living and training in Orlando, Florida. And today he's running around New York somewhere, so we don't know whether he's going to call us or not. His girlfriend, professional tennis player Irina Falcone, is getting ready to play in the U.S. Open there at Forest Hills. Rizwaan Zahid, the boxing journalist from Toronto. John J. Raspanti's chief lead writer from XBoxing.com and DogHouseBoxing.com. And John and I are co-authors of Intimate Warfare, True Story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward Boxing Trilogy, which is an Amazon bestseller. All right, guys. I used to go to this sports bar in Greeley, Colorado called the Dugout, where they had what they call a dead pool. And you would pay your $5, and you'd bet it on a famous person that you think is going to kick the bucket next. And there was a barfly there that everybody called Father Flanagan. And the person he bought in the dead pool was Mother Teresa. So what happened was Father Flanagan, this guy Father Flanagan, kicked the bucket not too long after that. So Mother Teresa became a free agent, and nobody ever bought her again. Nobody had the guts. So, which has almost nothing to do with boxing, except that Billy Joe Saunders was flinging chicken at a very angry Deontay Wilder in a Belfast restaurant. And if I was participating in a dead pool right now, I would buy Billy Joe Saunders' name. How crazy do you have to be, Riz, to provoke Deontay Wilder into literally chasing you out of a restaurant by throwing chicken at him? Just asking.
I don't know, man. I mean, they have Nando's over here, and Nando's has some good chicken, so I think that's a waste of a good meal, I think. That was mistake number one. Throwing it on Wilder is probably mistake number two. Yeah. I don't know. I know him and Fury are buddies, and they I don't know, they're quirky. That's just, I don't know, it's part of their shtick, I guess.
They're both gypsies.
Yeah, but I don't want to, blame, like, you can't blame it on the entire diaspora, but they're those two guys specifically, they're strange.
They are.
I've never seen a Saunders kid who's probably like 6 or 7 or something when he punched Willie Monroe in the nuts during a weigh-in. And it's just like out of the blue, no, he was not provoked or anything. So I don't know, it's kind of strange dudes, but but the funny thing is, I'll say this: both guys know boxing really well. I mean, Saunders, Fury said before Saunders fought Lemieux, he's like, I expect Saunders to complete his schooling, and Saunders obviously knows, and he understands that he wants to piss off Wilder, and those guys kind of work hand in hand together to angry up the opponents. And I guess in some ways the fight would be a similar matchup, the way Saunders and Lemieux was, where you have one heavy-handed guy and the other guy with clearly the better boxing skills. Obviously, Wilder is a whole different animal when it comes to power, and heavyweights are always very different. But I don't know. I think Saunders. I think they just get a kick out of it, to be honest. I don't know what it is with these two, but they like these kind of antics. It's it gets them the attention. But It's interesting. They haven't released a date, I don't think yet, but it is. I don't know what to make. I don't know what kind of chance I'm going to give Fury yet. I really don't. He looked better than he did in his previous warm-up fight, but he still was very heavy, and I just don't think that's good enough. And sometimes I wonder how, we talk about Fury as a hard matchup and all that. I think we're all reading into just his win over Klitschko. I can't really think of another fight where we're looking at. We're like, wow, Fury looked great, and his win over Klitschko, it took the worst Vladimir Klitschko that we've ever seen, and very different than other Vladimir losses where he got caught or he got tired, didn't manage his energy well. None of that happened. He was there for the full 12 rounds. He just didn't look like he wanted to be there. And even then, Fury he barely won. He didn't dominate the fight. So it took that. I think that's the only kind of win we're looking at Fury and thinking that he could pose a problem for Wilder and Joshua. So even though I think he will pose problems, I don't think the question to me is, can Fury avoid Wilder for 12 rounds? And the answer to me is no. He's not in great shape, and if he's not in great shape, he's not going to be able to avoid Wilder for that long. And if he does avoid him, I just think he eventually is going to get caught. And I'll say this though, he has enough power that if he sits on his punches, he can hurt. As every heavyweight, he can hurt any fighter, but he's not going to win against Wilder by sitting down on his punches. So I don't know. I'm glad the fight is happening because I think we need Wilder in a tough fight, but I do think Wilder's going to pass with flying colors. I think he's good. All he needs is one shot, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if he's down 4 or 5 rounds to none, and he'll land a right hand, and that'll be it. And he's a good finisher, so I'm very confidently going to pick Wilder in this fight.
Man, John, that's an interesting take, and it's something that I think we've all been thinking in the back of our heads, but Riz is the first one I've heard say it. Fury, when you look at his record, has fought one big guy, and it's Klitschko. And Klitschko may have been over the hill that night. He may have gotten old that night. Interesting, really interesting take. Every day, half the boxing world is saying Fury gets knocked out, and probably in the first half of the fight, and the other half of the boxing world is saying that Fury's a nightmare for Wilder. And I think that in itself is intriguing. If Fury's back to his 2015 prime, he's probably big trouble for Deontay. If he's not in trouble, if he's not, he himself is in trouble. So what evidence did you see in the Pianata fight?
Well, he's very clever still, and he's kind of a freak, if you think about it, 6'9", 258 pounds like he did yesterday, that he can move like he does, and he's still quick. I wasn't very impressed with his performance yesterday. I thought he looked okay. Obviously, he looked better than he did in his last fight, but he couldn't look any worse unless he knocked out you or me, Dennis, and that's not saying anything. So he had to look better in this fight to impress some, and even the crowd. And I watched it. I wrote about it. The Belfast fan base that loved him when he came into the ring. A lot of them booed at the end of the fight. So, but, Fury isn't that kind of a guy. I don't know what they were expecting. He's a boxer more than anything else. He boxes, and he's cute. He's kind of a big, gigantic cutie pie in a lot of ways. And that's why he causes problems for other heavyweights, just because of that freakish hand speed and foot speed. And he loves Muhammad Ali. He was doing a little bit of a Muhammad Ali thing on the ropes, had his hands down at his side, and he was moving his head around and doing all these kind of things, grabbing the rope a few times. And so he's not, that was really a good point that Riz made, because that's true. He really, the big win against Klitschko is all we really look at. And that just could have been, like Riz said again, that it was a bad night for Klitschko, and Fury fought his best fight. Now, I expect Fury, they're talking November, December in Las Vegas. I expect Fury to be better than he was yesterday in November, December. He knows what he's facing. He knows the power. One thing about him, he's a smart guy. And you have to be pretty much an idiot not to do it, not to realize it. But he knows what he's facing. He knows what he's up against. He's not going to be as careless as he can be, I don't believe, unless he's winning easily and gets too cocky, where he just sticks his chin out at Wilder and says, hit me. The other thing is that he's facing a guy who's as big as him, which will be different, just about the same height, a couple inches here or there. But that'll be very interesting. Wilder's got long arms. I agree with Riz, though. I think Wilder's going to win, but I think if Fury had maybe waited a little bit longer, he might have had a better chance. But maybe they figure, hey, what the hell? We roll the dice, we win. We got Joshua next year. This is Fury I'm thinking about. And they probably think maybe they can outpoint Wilder. As Fury said in the ring, well, he can't knock out what he can't hit. So I'm sure that's what they're counting on. But I think Wilder's going to catch him. I do. I think it's going to happen, and I believe he'll probably stop him. But I see the same thing as Riz, that Fury's going to win some rounds, and that's going to make it compelling. The next few months are going to be outrageous anyway with the two of them. And the other thing is I actually think they like each other, which is funny. So when they're yelling at each other, you're not going to be wondering if there's any real animosity going on. I don't believe there is. I think Wilder respects Fury. As he said, he sent me a contract. I signed it. I don't think either of them like Joshua, so they're going to be ripping on Joshua, which is fine. But it's going to be a fun promotion, and I do believe though that Fury, even though I'm with Riz that Wilder will likely win, I still think Fury has a shot because he's going to be better in November or December than he was yesterday. So I give him a good chance because of his odd styles. Like, if Travis was here, we could talk about that. Styles make fights, and he's going to drive Wilder crazy during that fight with his movement, his hand speed, his foot speed, and the little feinting that he does. And he's like a giant in a welterweight's body sometimes with the little movement, the little clever movement that he does. But Wilder's got that big power, and he's really determined and really hungry. So I think he's going to win, but Fury's going to give him some trouble, no doubt about that.
Riz, if Wilder does not knock Fury out, does he lose?
That's an interesting question. Okay, well, I'll throw a question back at you. Does he knock him down?
Well, good question. Yeah, I think he probably will.
If he knocks him down, then yes, because the points will add up. We've added Travis and I've had heated discussions on this. I mean, if Fury is able to outbox Wilder for most of the round, but Wilder scores a knockdown, if that turns into a 10-8 round for Wilder instead of a 10-9 round for Fury, that's a huge swing, and a couple of those can go a long way. So I think that's the question, because I think if Wilder knocks him down, I think he finishes him. Because here's the thing with Fury, I've seen him. It's only recently that he's kind of become this more, 6'9" slick boxer, if that makes sense. Because against a guy like Steve Cunningham, he was dropped, and then he came back and won. He fought what was former the Canadian heavyweight champion. I'm trying to remember his last name now. I can't remember for the life of me. Probably about maybe 6 years ago, and he got dropped, I think, in the second round there too, or he was hurt. He used to actually have some wars. He used to actually have some decent fights. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know if he's a little more cautious now, or he just understands that he has a kind of a skill set that a lot of guys just don't. I think if he stands up for all 12 rounds and he doesn't get knocked down, yeah, I think he wins. I do, because Wilder has not, even though he's improved, he does not have the boxing IQ that most guys in the sport have. But he has the freakish power that will bail him out every single time. That's what makes it. Winnable all the time for him. Fury's always been he's always bounced up and down in weight, but he's been hurt, he's been knocked down. But he has intangibles that Wilder hasn't seen yet. And Wilder just doesn't. He's a freak athlete, but he doesn't have the boxing IQ. But it's interesting because I was reading a quote from, I think it was Anatoly Lomachenko, and he was talking about the Usyk's win over Gaziev, and he said the fight wasn't easy. Just because he won every second doesn't mean the fight was easy. He had to be disciplined and perfect for every second of that fight. And he got countered with a shot, and it was the one time he wasn't perfect in that fight. So it takes, just because a guy wins every second of the fight doesn't mean it was easy. And I think that's the case here for Fury. He's going to have to be perfect. He's going to have to do everything correctly. He can't, stay in the pocket an extra second. He can't linger on the outside of Wilder's range. So all these little things he's going to have to do to secure a win, because Wilder might be one of the most freakishly powerful fighters we've ever seen. But again, Fury could hurt him, and that could change, that could change the entire outlook of the entire fight. So it'll be interesting. It's definitely. I'll say this about this fight compared to most of Wilder's fights. This actually brings some sort of intrigue, and good for Wilder. He's been trying to secure bigger opponents. He has. Ortiz was obviously a big one, but this is something he hasn't seen yet because he's fighting a guy who's taller than him. He's fighting a guy who's a southpaw, and he's not like. I mean, there's some still debate over how old Ortiz is. Fury's still 30 years old. Fury is actually right in his physical prime. Maybe not actually the way he looks physically, but at least age-wise. So it'll be interesting. If Fury comes in shape, he has a very legitimate chance of winning here, just because I think, above all, Wilder just doesn't have the IQ to deal with and adjust because he's never really had to. And again, I'm not saying he could blur Fury out in the first round, and it wouldn't shock any of us because Wilder has just unbelievably freakish power, and he's almost like Naseem Hamed, where you would never teach a guy to do any of the stuff that he does, but his athleticism and his power, it works, and you're not going to try to change that. And I don't know. I can see absolutely everything happening in this fight. I can see both guys getting knocked down. I can see Fury making it a stink fest. I can see Fury making a stink fest and getting knocked down in the 12th round. There's so many things that could happen in this fight, and I think from a boxing standpoint, it's very intriguing because you're going to see potentially both guys tested. Again, just because if Wilder wins in the first round, that doesn't mean he wasn't tested because he has to do things correctly to win. But Fury's going to have to be perfect. He has no wiggle room. Where Wilder always has the power in his back pocket that can always bail him out. Fury doesn't have that, and I think that's why Wilder will win.
Such great points, and John, you made one too that Fury he kind of fancies himself as a modern day Ali, and he likes to clown. And man, you got to have 12 rounds of focus against Fury. You can't, like Riz was saying, you can't take a second off, and that could be his downfall. If he starts clowning, he's going to get caught. So there's one thing you can comment on there, and also I want to switch gears on you and ask you about Bryant Jennings, who got knocked down but dominated his fight against Dimentrenko last night. He dropped him twice in round 8, TKO'd him in 9. Is this guy Bryant Jennings at the top of the second tier of heavyweights, right under Joshua, Wilder, and Fury? He got 2 losses. He lost the decision to Klitschko, and he got TKO'd by Luis Ortiz, and those were both 3 years ago, 2015.
Yeah, and I want to say one more thing about that, too. The interesting aspect of Fury and Wilder is that Fury will probably be able to hit Wilder with shots that he doesn't see coming because he's so clever, meaning Fury. And those are the shots that can really hurt a fighter. It's just like an automobile accident when you're driving along, a boom. You don't expect it. And that could happen because of his quickness and the way that he can move, and he might spin Wilder like he did in the first round yesterday. So both guys are going to have to be thinking in there, and that's true. Fury obviously has the edge as far as a boxing brain goes, but Wilder has the edge as power goes. So this one's going to have so many storylines going on with so many possibilities. In a way, I can't wait. It could be so many different things that we could make 10 predictions and be wrong. It could be the 11th one, the one we meant to bring up, we didn't. So that's what makes it so intriguing. I really like Bryant Jennings, Dennis. He's got a great background story. He got into the sport late, 24 years old. Interviewed the guy a few years ago. He's a great guy. I think we had him on the Ringside Boxing Show. Uh-huh. We interviewed him. Yeah, he's just a fabulous guy. So I pull for him. I don't think he can obviously beat any of the best guys. He's limited in his boxing talent, but he's a contender, and he's got Bob Arum promoting him now, so he's going to get another shot at the title. So somewhere down the road, he's 33 now, he'll get another shot, and he'll have a chance. But he had a hard time at times last night with the big giant Russian. So he's always going to be that guy, that is ranked like 7th or 8th, something like that. But he will get another shot. So the good thing about Bryant Jennings is that he won't feel cheated. He's fought two of the best fighters. Well, Ortiz is not in the top. Well, Ortiz is pretty close up there, too.
Sure.
And he lost to both of them, Klitschko, and he gave Klitschko a pretty good fight, if you guys remember.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that was a little foreshadowing what was going to happen later with Klitschko. Maybe that was the first sign that he was starting to fade a little bit, and I think we commented about that. But he's right below the top guys. But the heavyweights, after the guys we always talk about, Joshua Wilder, Joseph Parker, there's not much there, Dennis. They're pretty good, but they pale in comparison to a lot of different generations. So he's going to be around. He's going to get another shot. It was a good win for him. When he went down, it was like, uh-oh. It would have been obviously considered a pretty good upset if he lost. He was pretty much favored. So a good win. He moves on, and I wouldn't be surprised after a big fight by one of the heavyweight champions that he gets his shot. I don't know who it'll be against, but one of them next year. He was going to fight Joseph Parker, and then Parker stepped in and fought Dillian White, which he probably regrets now, but he's going to be in the mix because he's got the best one of the best promoters in his corner, so he's going to get another shot, and that's good. I like the guy. Like I said, I want to see him get one more shot, but the point you made in the beginning was the best. He's below the top guys, and I don't think anybody could disagree with that.
Yeah, we should try and get him on again sometime very soon.
Yes,
he was a good interview.
We will.
Talk about a guy whose plate is full right now. Carl Frampton. You got guys out there right now are Gary Russell Jr., Abner Mares, Leo Santa Cruz, who he's already fought twice, and there'd be a nice rubber match coming up between Frampton and Santa Cruz. Meanwhile, he took care of business with a 9th-round TKO, this guy Luke Jackson, this Australian who is 60-0. Frank Warren, who promotes Frampton, says Josh Warrington is next before the end of the year, and Warrington's 27-0. I think he's only got 6 knockouts, but he's beaten Lee Selby and Dennis Salen and Kiko Martinez and Patrick Hyland, a couple other B-plus fighters in his last 4 fights. And, man, Warrington against Frampton would be huge in England. But Frampton's already saying that all the big fights that he wants are going to be in the U.S., and that includes Russell and Mares and Santa Cruz, I'm sure. So a lot of interesting options for him, Riz, and I wonder if his promoter and him are going to see eye to eye on this.
Money makes a difference, and I think the point of this is for Josh Warrington, this is a step up. It's a way for him to make a name. For Frampton, I don't think him losing will hurt him that much, and he'll make a crap load of money doing it in a big fight in England. So I think it's a very safe fight for him. Even if he loses, he's against a guy with 6 knockouts, he's not going to get hurt. And I think so it's not going to derail or shorten his career, which is big. Because I think he can still lose that fight and still make another fight with Santa Cruz or another fight with Mares or Russ or whatever, right? I don't think it's going to hurt his chances of making a fight, like one of those fights, or at least not that much. Again, because he's not going to get, even if he loses, he's not going to get physically hurt, I don't think. And obviously it's a huge money fight in England or in Britain somewhere, and it'll make a lot of money. So I think to be honest, I think it's a great plan. It's not because I don't recall what his purses were for Santa Cruz, but I imagine this fight would be up there. In terms of purse, I think it might be even more actually, right? So I think it's a much more viable option because those other fights are not going to go away. I think he'll still be always in the mix for all those fights. So unless he embarrasses himself against Josh Warrington, which I don't see happening. So I think Frank Warren's been around a really long time. I think he knows what he's doing. I think I understand as a fighter, obviously he wants to fight the best right away all the time and the big names, but sometimes they don't line up perfectly. I think that's the situation here. I think Warrington fight, it makes sense. Win, lose, or draw, I think he's still in the mix for all those other fights that we just mentioned. So it's a good time to be Frampton right now. There's a lot of guys who win fights and then Berto's the big name that comes to mind. Berto was untouchable for a while, but he wasn't fighting any big names at all. And then when he did step up in competition, he lost, but he still put on good performances. And because of that, he's, since then, he's been in the ring with a lot of the big names. And he's made a lot more money doing that. And I'm not, Frampton I think is more talented than Berto was, so he was able to win some of those fights. But I think that's the way Frampton's career now is. He might lose some of the big fights, but he'll be in all the big fights. And in some ways, that's a lot better than guys who are going through obscurity.
Okay, last one for you guys today. Here's a story that caught me completely by surprise this week, and I'm guessing it was the same for you. Mia St. John confessed this week that she used performance-enhancing drugs in about a third of her 65 pro fights between 1997 and 2016, and she said everybody does it and everybody in boxing knows it. Man, she got a lot of blowback from the boxing world this week from people like Carl Frampton and Clarissa Shields and Tony Bellew, among others. A while back, we heard Malignaggi declare that Canelo's rampant PED use is an open secret. John, what do you think the truth is about PED use in boxing?
Well, that's a great question. I think she was throwing everybody under the bus to try to make herself not look as bad. I maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm an optimist, maybe I'm whatever you want to call me, but I don't believe everybody does it. I think it has happened. I think quite a few boxers, meaning I don't know, probably 25 or 30% have, but I don't want to believe it. I know people that I respect who will tell you, "Oh, there's no doubt in my mind that they all do it." I don't want to believe that. I don't want to believe her. Like I said, I think she was just trying to make herself look better, which all it did is make her look worse as far as I'm concerned, with the steroids thing. And I'm glad that Frampton and Clarissa Shields, because just think about it, if you've been clean your whole career and somebody says everybody's doing it, that includes you.
Yeah.
And that's not right. Who's going to want to get that doubt thrown at him when you've been clean your whole career? You should have thought about that a little bit. So it's very discouraging, very disappointing, shocking. Yeah, a little, but boxing, it's hard to get shocked with boxing just because it has such a dark side that we talk about sometimes. But again, I will repeat it. I don't think everybody does it. I think she was making excuses, but there is a percentage that have done it maybe once in their career or whatever. There was a lot of talk about Pacquiao for years. We don't hear much anymore. There was a lot of talk about Marquez, before they fought the fourth time. He certainly looked like he was doing something. He looked like King Kong in there. So we know it's around, but again, I don't want to believe it's everybody, but I will say that I think it happens. They're used because everybody's looking for an edge. Not everybody. Whoever uses is looking for an edge. But I don't like throwing everybody under the bus and saying they all do it. That's not fair to all the clean fighters that we've talked to, we've had on the show, that we've admired, that we like. So I'm not going to say that, but disappointed in Mia St. John. I don't know why she would admit to something so disgraceful, but I guess it is what it is.
Okay, Riz, he says, John says about a third, he's guessing about a third of them. What's your gut feeling?
I don't know, to be honest, but I'll say this. The guys who get the most offended, like John was saying, they're getting offended for a reason because they've been clean the entire time. Like, look at Golovkin's reaction when Canelo got busted. And Golovkin was, livid. This is a guy who's, for the most part, a pretty nice guy, people say. Everyone says, oh, he's always, so nice when you meet him outside. And I've never seen, no one has ever seen him that angry. And that's because, like John said, if, and this, you take this outside of sports, if there's something that you're doing correctly all the time and you're doing things honestly, and there's people who are getting ahead because they're not doing it honestly, and then they say, oh, well, everyone's doing it. And you're like, no, I've been doing it the right way. And I think a lot of guys take the guys who are doing it, the guys and girls who are doing it correctly, they take pride in it. And I think that's what's happening here. I think it's very unfair to lump up everyone in there. And again, there's a difference between, taking something that's illegal and banned and taking something that was not banned. I have no problem if you're taking something that's not on the ban list yet. That's totally up to you. As far as the, I'm sure there's some diuretics that are not on the ban list, and if that helps your training and whatever, then so be it. But as soon as it's on the ban list, then you have to clean up. And I think that's just some fighters are ahead of the game, and again, whatever works for you. But to say that all these fighters are taking performance enhancers, quote unquote, so that's just not diuretic, but something that's going to help you hurt another fighter, and these are things that are on the banned list, then you're talking about something else completely different, and it's very unfair to lump everyone in on that, and that's why you see guys like Golovkin or even Wilder after Povetkin. That's why you see those guys angry, because they know they've put in the work the way it's supposed to be put in, and there's a lot. You can see why some fighters are visibly offended by that, and I think they should be, because the guys who people always said some people have actually accused Bernard Hopkins. Hopkins an anomaly. Hopkins has always taken care of his body. Klitschko, same thing. Like, both guys have always trained constantly throughout the year. They always watch what they eat. Hopkins is, you don't fight till that age without being perfect. So if no one really leapt too much at the Hopkins accusation, because they know the work he's put in, and he has never taken shortcuts. And I think that's what this is. This is a shortcut. To say everyone else is taking a shortcut is a very, funny enough, it's a very shortcut in thinking, and it's very short-minded, and it just doesn't give credit to all the guys and girls who are putting in real effort into the sport. And this is not just in boxing, this is in all sports. I think boxing is the only one, though, in terms of combat, though, so guys and girls are getting physically hurt. And it's not just about, you take a performance enhancer and you can hit a ball farther. It's about actually physically hurting your opponent. And to say that everyone is doing it dishonestly, I think is a disservice to the sport, and it's a disservice to all the clean fighters.
Rizwaan, Zahid, and John J. Raspanti are our expert analysts, and they give you the truth every week on this show. John's going to be back in a few minutes to help me interview Showtime Shawn Porter. Riz, you have a great week. Thank you, guys, and we'll catch up with you next Sunday.
Sound good, guys.
Here, guys.
Paul McLaughlin is up in 1 minute, and Ruben Villa IV and Showtime Shawn Porter are still to come. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
I don't want you living with roaches.
I'm Dennis Taylor, co-author of the Amazon bestseller Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy. Writing this book was a labor of love for John J. Raspanti and myself. We enjoyed every minute of the process and considered it a privilege to tell the tale of one of the most electrifying boxing trilogies in the history of this sport. Intimate Warfare traces the collision course of Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward from their earliest days through their 3 epic fights, as well as the aftermath of this great rivalry, which culminated in one of the greatest friendships in boxing. Intimate Warfare has received a 4.5-star rating from readers and was endorsed by Hall of Famers Harold Letterman and Joe Cortez and 2-time Trainer of the Year Virgil Hunter. Our foreword was written by Ray Boom Boom Mancini, another one of the greatest blood and guts fighters of our time. Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
Hi there, it's Paul McLaughlin with your weekly roundup of everything going on in the UK boxing scene at the moment. First off, we start with Belfast's Carl Frampton, who won his dream fight at Windsor Park by stopping Luke Jackson in 9 rounds to secure another shot at the world featherweight title. Having successfully defended the interim WBO title, he will be confirmed as mandatory challenger to full-time champion Oscar Valdez, but will next fight IBF titleist Josh Warrington, who travelled to Windsor Park to be at ringside. Against Australia's Jackson, the 31-year-old had long been a significant favourite, and he performed to the level expected. So how was it to fight in front of his own crowd?
I think the atmosphere was incredible. I think I sent home, the fans all were sent home very happy. Brilliant build from top to bottom as well, and I got a stoppage win, which I haven't done, and someone just told me 3.5 years, so almost a perfect night.
And will this Josh Warrington fight actually happen?
The fight hasn't even been made yet, but it looks like it can be made. Obviously I'm with Frank, he's with Frank, so that fight, hopefully it can happen before the end of the year. It's a good fight with my fan base, his fan base. I think it would be very, very atmospheric.
Next up, it's the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury, who continued his comeback with a comfortable points victory over Francesco Pianata to set up a world title fight against WBC heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder. Fury dominated his durable yet limited German opponent throughout the fight, winning 100-90 on all 3 judges' scorecards, to extend his unbeaten professional record to 27-0. The former WBA, IBF, WBO and IBO heavyweight champion made his ring walk to Sweet Home, Alabama, a less than subtle go to Wilder, who was watching ringside at Windsor Park. Then Wilder joined Fury in the ring for a face-off. So, what's happening with the fight?
You know, we are two men who will fight anybody. This man has been trying to make a big fight with the other chump. I think we all know who we're talking about. Listen, they called. I answered. I said, send me the contract. They sent the contract. I said yes. And now he gets his chance to fight the lineal heavyweight champion of the world. My promise is, I've got me rounds here tonight, 10 rounds. But one thing I promise when I go to Las Vegas is I'm knocking you out, boom.
Well, let's hope that happens then. And elsewhere, Tony Bellew says his showdown with Alexander Usyk is inevitable, but it has to happen this year. The former WBC cruiserweight holders team have begun negotiations for a fight that will see all 4 recognised titles on the line. We asked former world champion Calif for his view on a potential scrap.
Dangerous fight, yeah, for both men actually. But it's probably going to be Tony Bellew's toughest fight. The boxing purists know you see and appreciate his skill and how good he is and how tough he is and his ability. But I don't know. I suppose the British fans would tune into that and they'd want to see a bit of that. But it's a tough fight for both men, and I think if Bellew catches him with that left hook, that bomb, he can get him out of there and shock everyone. But the Usyk fight, Tony Bellew, is a tough one, but I've got to pick my man Bellew to win that.
Right, that's your lot from me, guys. Have a great week. In the meantime, gloves up and protect yourselves at all times, and back to the studio.
And just an awful lot of strange and unusual characters in boxing right now, and you guys have your share of them over there on that side of the Atlantic. Paul McLaughlin, what is the penalty in the UK for assaulting someone with half a chicken breast? Is that against the law there? Anyway, thank you, Paul. We're gonna take one more quick break. Come back with Ruben Villa IV, one of the outstanding up-and-coming fighters in the world right now. He's a featherweight.
Hi, I'm Dennis Taylor, host of the Ringside Boxing Show, where since 2008 we have been continuously sponsored by Garcia Boxing, the first family of the sweet science on California's beautiful Central Coast. Trainers Max and Sam Garcia and ring strategist Dean Familton are regarded among the most knowledgeable in the game. And Kathy Garcia, who manages all Garcia boxing fighters, is renowned for her integrity and career guidance, having taken 2 boxers to #1 world rankings. Together they comprise one of the most respected teams in the sport. Learn more by calling 831-261-3214 or send them an email at garciaboxing25@aol.com.
Hey, this is Harvey Dock. I'm a professional referee, and I'm a fan of Ringside Boxing Show.
Welcome back to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor, and we're on location now at the training headquarters of Ruben Villa IV. He's a 15-time national champion as an amateur, and he's now 12-0 as a pro. Ruben has an 8-round fight scheduled Friday in Corona, California, against Jose Santos Gonzalez, who's a 28-fight veteran from Guadalajara, Mexico, and he's got a 23-5 record. Ruben, 2 things jump out at me when I look at your opponent's record. First, he's only been stopped once in his career, and secondly, that was against Zolani Tete, who has become a world champion since then. And the other thing that I noticed is that he lost a really tough decision to Duke Micah, who was 20-0 in his last fight. 2 of the judges had it 96-94. The other one scored it a draw. What kind of fight are you expecting from this guy?
I mean, he's a veteran, like you said, and these guys are real crafty in unique ways. They're not really sounded boxers, but me and Max, we sat down and we always have these little talks and talk about our opponents. I even watched one of his fights on YouTube, and I seen what he's good at, and I seen what I could really counter or adapt at, and we'll be ready. These are the kind of guys that really step your game up and really put your name out there, and I'm ready to win fashionably.
Are people going to be able to watch this one on Thompson Boxing website, Max?
Yes, sir. ThompsonBoxing.com. I believe it's their Facebook page. Or just go to ThompsonBoxing.com and you'll find it.
Okay. Ruben, the objective, obviously, is to learn new things and grow from every fight. What's been the focus in this training camp, and what are you hoping to show people Friday in Corona?
This focus was more to, keep my distance and not get hit as much as I did my last fight. A little fight broke out, and I came out with a couple bumps and scratches, and that was more the case in this training camp, is to not really fall into these guys' game plan and fight their fight. And so I'm just going to keep it punch whenever I want to punch and pretty much just do whatever I want to do when I want to do it. And that's just really been the main focus in this training camp.
Max Garcia is Ruben's head trainer, and he's here right now. He's actually taping up Ruben's hands as we talk. Max, if we looked at Jose Santos Gonzalez' record, 23-5, looks like he's another step up for Ruben, which is exactly what you want. What do you know about this guy's style?
I know he's susceptible to the 1-2 punch. He doesn't have great footwork, and his hand speed is a little questionable, but we're going to counter all that with what Ruben just mentioned, and kind of mesmerize this guy with our movement, because Ruben moves real good and great footwork. So hopefully punch when we see the opening and, get out.
Okay, you're going to be sparring today. Who are you going to be sparring with today, and who have you sparred with in training camp?
We sparred Joel Diaz Jr., we sparred Alan Sanchez, we sparred Bruno Escalante out in Dreamland in San Jose with Jesse Huerta, and that's about it, basically.
Ruben, how goes the weight battle? That's always fun, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this time it was actually pretty easy. I'm no more than 7 pounds right now, and it's not hitting me yet. I mean, we've been making 126 pretty easy, and hope to stay right here for a little longer.
What's the final week like for you? Do you get edgy? Are you quiet? Are you mean as a snake? What's with a week to go? How do you get?
The last couple of days I could get a little grumpy and just kind of want my own space. But when it comes to fight night, we'll take all the sacrifices and everything we went through, all the hard work, and put it in the ring.
Max, this is going to be Ruben's 13th pro fight. That tells me that maybe next summer or next fall, we could be seeing him in a world title fight. That just seems like the timing to me. Am I on mark there, or do you have any idea about that part?
That's going to be up to the promoter and manager. But from what I've seen, he's been improving every fight. He's been really super dedicated, and God willing, a year. Hopefully, at the end of the year, next year, 2019, we get a shot at it. That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, that's exciting. Is this Ruben's last 8-rounder, or are you looking about 10?
I hope it's his last 8-rounder. That's, again, it depends on the promoter and the manager. I mean, we're ready for 10 rounds, but we're fighting these guys that fought 10 rounds before and maybe even 12. So I don't see why we couldn't start next year, early February, at a 10-rounder.
You grew up in this town, Salinas, California. They recently honored you with Ruben Villa Day. What was that like, man?
It was shocking, man. I got the call, and it was just a blessing to get that news. And me and my family were really blessed and honored to have that day. It really shows that all that hard work that finally paid off.
This town's had a lot of good boxers, but never a world champion. How motivating is that for you?
Really motivated. I just want to be the best me, and if that involves a world title, then that's what it is. And just keep working hard and keep dedicating myself to my craft, and hopefully we'll get there.
You got a big following in this town. How many people go down to Corona?
Last time there was around 100 people. Hopefully we take around the same amount, and and hopefully everyone enjoys the show.
You hear him when you're in the ring?
My mom. I can hear my mom. My dad a little bit, but more my mom. Just real quick, and then I'll just be right back focused on the task I have in front of me.
All right, that's Ruben Villa. He's 12-0. He's got 5 knockouts. He KO'd his last opponent, Ricardo Lopez, a couple of months ago in the same arena. Ruben, best of luck, buddy, and thanks for taking some time for us on the Ringside Boxing Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, Max.
Thank you, Dennis. Take care of yourself.
We've had some pretty good fighters here in Central California, including Robert the Ghost Guerrero, who lives right up the highway from us, and Jose Salaya, who was ranked number 1 by the WBO at welterweight, and Eloy Perez, who fought Adrian Broner for a world title. But there's never been a world champion from Salinas, California. So this community is pretty excited about Ruben Villa, and we wish him the best of luck. He is an absolutely great kid, easy guy to root for. So, okay, we got we got Shawn Porter standing by. We'll be back in about 5 seconds here.
You're listening to the Ringside Boxing Show, the hottest, sweatiest show on West Coast Radio.
With the main event of the evening, 12 rounds of boxing for the WBA welterweight championship of the world. And now, ladies and gentlemen in attendance and boxing fans joining us around the world, live from Barclays Center in Brooklyn, it's showtime!
Hey, welcome back to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor with my partner John J. Raspanti, and our featured guest today is one of the great action fighters of his generation. Shawn Porter's 28-2-1, 17 knockouts against a formidable cast of opponents, including Kell Brook, Adrian Broner, Keith Thurman, Andre Berto, Devin Alexander. The list goes on. And his next opponent is another guy on that very top echelon, Danny Swift Garcia. It's going to be for the vacant WBC welterweight championship. That's going to be September 8th, about 3 weeks from now, and you're going to see it on Showtime. Shawn, welcome back to the Ringside Boxing Show. Always great to talk to you. How are you, man?
Actually, well, I'm still stuck on your first statement. You said one of the great action fighters of my generation. I've never really looked at it like that, and never even heard you say that. So wow, just wow.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're totally sincere about that. You're guys like you are the reason that we fall in love with boxing, and we know every single time we watch you, we know you're going to bring it. That's one thing we can count on from Showtime Shawn Porter, so that's why I said that. So
that's the plan. Well, I'm doing good. Things going well. Everything's good, and obviously just calm down at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. So take us inside your head a little bit. Fighters all have a different way of preparing, especially mentally. So what's your mood like 3 weeks in advance of a fight? What's your level of tension and intensity right now? And when will all those things start to really ramp up?
Right now, all of the focus is on Danny Garcia, what he can do and what he can't do. I've been watching film on him day in and day out. Recently up as late as 2 o'clock in the morning, watching fights with him last night, midnight. But that's the kind of mindset that I feel I need to be in at this point. I need to see this kid. I need to know this kid. I need to know how he moves and the things that makes him tick and make the moves that he makes. So a lot of film study right now, and then outside of that, obviously just the typical training, still running, still sparring, and obviously still sticking with the diet plan. So everything's good.
We were talking to your dad just a few minutes ago, and one of the things he was telling us is that when you're running, sometimes it's 100 degrees, 9 o'clock in the morning in Vegas. How tough is that?
I was mad this morning. I specifically got up about 7 o'clock to get out there before the sun really started to burn, and I actually did a bike workout, which is basically just about 4-mile bike ride, then a 3-mile run, then a 4-mile bike ride back home, and I was unable to find my air pump for my tires for a good hour, and that had me a little heated, but I let it go and I got the work in. But yeah, he's exactly right. Sometimes the temperatures are really, really high, and it's part of his plan. You deal with the heat now, and you won't have to deal with it later. So.
I asked you what you're like with 3 weeks to go. What do you typically like during fight week? Are you quiet? Are you edgy? Are you loose and joking around? How do you cope with fights?
Like even this week, I'm not, I'm more so to myself. I'm not really getting out too much and doing anything. Actually, a few of my training partners, we sat down this morning and had breakfast. And that for me was just a really good way to loosen up and get away from the typical program. Came in by myself, trained by myself, So, but aside from that, at this point, I'm just typically by myself. It will be a lot the same. However, I don't have a problem doing the whole picture and autograph thing. I love the press conference and everything that comes along with the championship fight atmosphere. So I do enjoy all of it.
How about the battle of the weight, Shawn? I mean, I don't see you battling it that much because you always look like you're in pretty good shape. But you're 3 weeks out, as Dennis said. How's that going along?
I stay in good shape. I stay in good fitness. And, at this point, I would say we're right on time, so right on schedule. At this point, I try to get rid of any worry I may have, whether that is a personal matter or even something pertaining directly to the fight. I try to, make it so that everything is light, everything is easy. Going into the week of the fight, no worries at all.
Yeah, tell me about your routine on the day of the fight. This is always fascinating because I've talked to a lot of fighters. They all have different routines. Some sleep late, some go to bed really early, get up early, some take a nap. What do you do on the day of the fight? What's your normal routine?
I tell you what, I do not sleep in. And it's been fun too because I've been fighting at the Barclays for a little while, so I've been able to develop a routine that I really do think works for me. And we get up 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning. We have a good breakfast. We get together as a team, enjoy a breakfast, and just go out. There's never any tension, never any worries, never anything on my mind other than the fight. So I just keep everything light and fun, leading all the way up to the fight.
Is the waiting a form of torture on fight day?
It is. It is definitely a form of torture because it's coming, but it can't come soon enough. And for those reasons, it's always torture for me. I like to try to get a few naps in during the day, not only because I need that rest, but also because when I'm napping, I'm not, I don't have the fight on my mind, and I'm not sitting there waiting, So, but that is always torture for me, waiting for that time to come around to get in the ring and do what I love to do.
When you make that ring walk, are you already locked into a zone, or are you looking around the arena and soaking that in and smiling at friends and all that kind of stuff, or what do you like?
I like to be locked into a zone, going to the ring. In the beautiful world, I enter the ring already in my zone and ready and focused to do what I got to do. However, the crowd is something for me that has always made my heart smile. So when I walk out, I do always look around and I make sure that stadium's full. Stadium's not full, I'm disappointed. Good part about that is that that's never a case for me.
So tell me what that moment's like, John, because Dennis and I are never going to know this. When you come to the middle of the ring and you're getting the final instructions from the referee and you're looking at your opponent, you guys' eyes are locked. Are you like, you must be like tingling all over to get it going, right? You must be like,
I don't, and I don't typically look at the guy when we're in the middle of the ring. There's no reason for me to look you in the eye. Any intimidation factor is already taking place from you watching film of me, from you, knowing what I can do. There's no point in me, looking at you in the eye in the middle of the ring right before the fight to try to play, some type of body language and get an edge. All that to me is done well before the fight. So I'm more so in the center of the ring, hearing the same old thing, get out of the way, let this bell ring, we can do what we do.
I see.
How about every sane fighter feeling, the healthy? Is there a little fear at that moment, or are you just locked in on your plan, or is fear not a word you even use? Is it just you're totally intent? I just want to get going with this.
Yeah, locked in on the plan for sure. Bell rings, and I'm already thinking, what's first, and then the whole, tactical calculations begin. What's he doing? What's he doing? Did he come right at me? So on and so forth. So for me, man, it's kind of indescribable. The type of mentality and focus I enter the ring with, because you don't go through anything like it, and it's really hard for me to describe the way I'm functioning from a mental aspect, but it's at a really, really high level.
Talking to Showtime Shawn Porter on the Ringside Boxing Show. He is the former IBF welterweight champion of the world, and September 8th he hopes to become the WBC welterweight champ by beating Danny Garcia. When we're talking about two elite fighters like you and Danny, how much of the battle do you think is psychological? Can guys at the top level like you and Danny get into each other's heads, or do you think the smack talk is mostly just part of the show?
No, definitely. There's I think every fight, most of the fights, in my personal opinion, most of the fights that Keith Thurman had, a lot of the guys were leery of his power. The same for Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia, when he got in the ring, he knew Keith Thurman was a hard hitter, so he never really went at Danny with the intentions to knock him out until that was, what he felt he needed to do in the fight. And I think, the same goes for me. There's already an intimidation factor that's set in because you know what Shawn Porter is capable of. On the opposite side of that, I am aware of what Danny Garcia does and can do, but I'm not going to allow that to limit what I can do. I'm not going to allow him to decide what I'm going to do in the ring. So, to me, the way you handle that factor is from a mental standpoint before you enter the ring.
You mentioned that you watch a lot of tape, Shawn. So obviously you have a plan in your head that you've been working on when the fight starts. When you're in the heat of the battle and you're sitting there in a corner, your dad is giving you advice and everything, and I know you totally listen to him and respect his opinion. You're also thinking to yourself, hey, man, I see something here. I'm hearing Dad here, but, I'm also seeing something. Is that, or you just listen to what your dad says and you go out there and you execute?
It depends on what's going on. It depends on the fight and in the motion of the fight. There's been times where he gave me instructions and I used those instructions, never said a word back. But there's also been cases in fights, not numerous, but a fight or two, 3, 4 maybe, where I did see something and I spoke up in the moment. When we're in the corner, like, hey, he's doing this, and my dad will immediately calculate what I said and, tell me what to do, so it goes hand in hand, we're not a team for just any reason, we're not a team so that he can tell me what to do and I do just that, that's not what team effort is, so we calculate as a team when we're in the ring.
Yeah, tell me about the mindset in the opening minute or two. I mean, a lot of us who've watched fights, all the commentators will say, well, they're feeling each other out or whatever. Now, you being so aggressive, you come out there, obviously, your aggressive self, but are you aware of anything? You're obviously aware, but are you looking for anything in particular, or are you just like, I'm going to go get in this guy's grill and do my thing?
This fight specifically, I'll speak on this fight specifically. I understand that Danny Garcia, I've really dissected him and analyzed him, and I know what he does well. And because of that, I know that I can't just go out there and be aggressive and throw combinations because I know combinations to throw. I know that everything, number one, has to be calculated, but also it has to be set up. If I'm throwing, jabs to his head, even the jabs have to be set up, the most basic punch. If I want to land those jabs and not get hit, I have to set those jabs up and so on and so forth. You know, the body attack has to work the same. I have to be able to set those body shots up and not just go at him thinking, oh, I can get to his body, because, you know, that you will 9 times out of 10 walk into something when you're fighting Danny Garcia, because he's a fighter that can time your rhythm and punch when you punch and leave you. You know, he's left many of opponents on the floor after that.
He's a counter puncher, and you're, as we said earlier, you're one of the most relentless fighters of your generation, I think. Matchups like this are exactly why we love boxing. How much of a chess match do you think this one might turn out to be?
That's hard to answer, because I know that in a lot of ways I am, for the sake of words, I can do more in the ring, and I think because of that, as long as I'm able to keep him guessing and keep him hesitating, that it won't be quite the chess match that people would expect from, you know, a 28-2 guy and a 34-1 guy. I think that there's a lot of things I can do that will just offset him, so that he won't be able to counterpunch me and make this, you know, the chess match that it would seemingly be. I think that I can make this a one-sided chess.
Your willpower is legendary to us. Your ability to keep coming at your opponent for 12 rounds is pretty special. Where do you think that comes from? Where'd you get that?
And I have to do with this fight. It comes from, I honestly think that it comes from my competitive drive. There's a number of things that happen in the ring that take place throughout the course of a match. One thing for me that I kind of pride myself on is being able to control my opponents and make them do what I want them to do. I think the combination of that and then me being competitive as well kind of makes me say, you know, I'm coming after you. I'm going to have my way no matter what. And, you know, it comes out in a sense of aggression usually, but that's what it is, and it's just a willingness and a want and a desire to do what I want to do in the ring.
When the pain and the exhaustion comes, Shawn, how do you get past it? I mean, where do you go in your mind when you feel like you're running on fumes?
I mean, honestly, I don't recognize it. I think that that's the key to that. I think anytime you are willing to acknowledge you are feeling tired or fatigued or anything like that, that's when it starts to really come on you. So there are points in the match where I do have a sense that, you know, that's happening, but I immediately just rush it out of my mind.
Do you have a preference on what kind of fight this is going to be, Shawn? I mean, are you thinking Ward Gotti, or are you thinking you're just going to go in there, do your thing, and see how it works out? I mean, do you have a preference, though? That's really one I want to know.
I really do think that this fight could go many ways, and I think that it will go many ways. I don't expect to just come out and be able to do what I've done with some opponents. You know, most recently, Adrian Granados and Andre Berto was both those guys. I pretty much threw the combinations I wanted to throw, landed what I wanted to land, and the fight played out. I don't think that this fight will play that way. I don't think that I can just out and go at Danny with combinations and body punches and be aggressive to win this match. It's going to take more than that. Amir Khan, very, very, very fast, and you know he stayed for too long, and you know got caught with a big hook, and you know it went all downhill from there. You know, so I'm very aware of what Danny Garcia brings to the ring. So I will be just as aware defensively as offensively.
A couple days ago, your dad, who was also your trainer, Kenny Porter, did an interview that I found on YouTube. And I want to play you a clip from that interview and get you to react to it. But he talked about how your training camp's been going. Here's what he said.
They would have announced this fight about 6 weeks prior to the fight, give or take, 6 or 7. That announcement was when we found out we needed to get ready for it. Mm-hmm. So it's not, you know what I mean? It's not like the other ones where we had 3 or 4 months and we knew that's what we were going to be doing. So it's not like this. So we've been trying to put a lot of things together on the fly. A lot of guys have pulled out as far as sparring partners. We're hoping that it changes up next week, getting more commitments, but different things have happened.
You know, between that and USADA and VADA testing you and disrupting things, you know, throwing your routine off, it sounds like this hasn't exactly been clockwork, the kind of clockwork you like to have in a training camp.
You know, it's been interesting. I think we are and I kid you not, at this point, you know, probably a week ago, I always developed this mentality of I gotta do what I gotta do and nothing else matters. And, you know, that's kind of how it was when you saw a little frustrated that we saw the end, but continue to show up at my house. But I dealt with it, and a little frustrated that I personally haven't gotten the sparring that I would like to have before the fight. But that's not going to be an excuse, and I won't allow it to be. So I'm going to deal with whoever my dad put in front of me. We'll go at those guys like they're world champions caliber, and we'll be ready for this fight, man. Trust me. The fact that this particular camp has not been the clock it doesn't matter to me at this point. I don't care.
We know that you're going to be ready to go 12 rounds, but are you expecting this one to go to the final bell?
We'll see. We will see. I do. I think if I'm as sure as I'm going to be and do the things I can do, we can get Danny out of there.
Hey, Shawn, how well does your dad, being your trainer, how well is he able to read you in the corner? And what does he do to push your buttons that no other trainer would be able to do?
Yeah, that's what he does. My dad is, especially when it comes to the fight. He's looking me up and down from my toes to my feet to my head, and he's making sure everything is clicking the way it needs to click. And he knows. For me, it's not a matter of him pushing buttons, saying something a certain way. He just needs to say it, and I'm going to go out there and do it.
Hey, Shawn, I got to ask you this, because when you did this, it really surprised me, because I had never seen you do this. When you got into the ring a few months ago to challenge Danny Garcia, was that something you had planned in advance, or was it just kind of a spontaneous decision?
I knew he was coming to Vegas to fight, so that was number one. I said, I got to do something. So the thought of getting in the ring had spurred up probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks before the fight. I knew that night it was going to be done, and honestly, I just put myself in position to make it happen. You know, I didn't even sit in my ringside that night. I sat with the writers. I sat right there at the writers' box and waited for that opportunity, and got in the ring and did it.
I see. Hey, Shawn, Danny seemed pretty perturbed. You know, he keeps mentioning, hey, he got in the ring because he was enjoying his victory, right? If that was you, if you would want to fight and Danny did the same thing, would it have bothered you?
No, I'm pretty sure that I would have went at him the way I went at him that night. I got in the ring, called me out to fight me. I would have grabbed the mic and said, let's make the fight happen right now. There's no reason for you to go home and second guess fight me. I'm not going to do that. Let's take a date, you know. So, but that's how I'm pretty sure I would have handled it. Obviously, a lot more calm and cool and collected because that's the kind of person I am. But trust me, if he had gotten in the ring calling me out, the fight would have been the fight that is happening right now.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. And you had some really important fights in your career, as Dennis mentioned at the beginning. You know, you fought Keith Thurman, and you fought so many top fighters. Do you think this is the most important fight of your career?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And there's a number of reasons. I mean, we're going for another world championship, the WBC title. It's Danny Garcia. He's only had one loss, and to make the long answer short, every next fight is the most important fight. That what you do that night determines what's going to happen in the future. So for a number of reasons, this fight is the biggest fight of that.
Yeah.
Okay, last one for you, Shawn. What are the chances that we're going to see the fight of the year on Showtime on September 8th?
100%. 100%. And I know that Canelo and Triple G are coming right after us. They're not going to be able to hold a candle to this. I expect Danny to get in there, be sharp, be the swift guy that he claims to be. And I expect it to be a banger, man. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic fight. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, four of us talked about who was going to win this fight last week on this show. Two of the guys gave a slight edge to Shawn Porter. Two of them gave a slight edge to Danny Garcia. That's what makes boxing the great sport that it is. Shawn, you're always a class act, and you're an easy guy to root for. Best of luck on September 8th, and thanks a bunch for making some time for us today, again, on the Ringside Boxing Show.
You got it, man. God bless you guys, and I'll be seeing you guys soon.
All right.
Good luck.
Showtime Shawn Porter, one of our favorites on the Ringside Boxing Show. Hey, do you like this show? Do us a solid and post the Ringside Boxing Show on your social media outlets. Help us grow. And also, if you have not yet discovered the #1 website on the Internet for daily boxing news, you are missing out. You got something to add to your bucket list. We update ringsideboxingshow.com 365 days a year with all the breaking news and the most interesting stories every single day. Check it out right now, and you will be amazed. I guarantee it. ringsideboxingshow.com. Thanks, as always, to our expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and my partner, John J. Raspanti, and, of course, our outstanding British correspondent, Paul McLaughlin. And another huge thank you to today's featured guest, Showtime Shawn Porter. You're going to see him September 8th on Showtime against Danny Garcia. And, of course, thanks to you, Ringside Nation, for being a part of our worldwide audience again today. Keep your chin tucked, and we will talk to you again next week on the Ringside Boxing Show.
Well, it's a great day for me to whoop somebody's ass. It's a bad day, so you better get off of my back. You might get cold cocked if you cross my path. It's a great day